What is an IT roadmap? Why you should have one? The 30-second answer. You need an IT roadmap to ensure that the investments that you've made into your technology assets do not transform into technological liabilities, or worse, nightmares. Investing in your IT roadmap as part of your corporate strategy is a measure that will pay dividends back to your organization through enablement, risk mitigation, and overall employee satisfaction. First, let's understand what a roadmap is, and more importantly, isn't. Those of us old enough to remember Thomas guides or fold-up maps from AAA will remember how useful these were to help you navigate to your destination. We also remember how quickly these maps became out of date or inaccurate. They aged. You had a choice. You could either memorize those new routes, or you could make the investment to buy an updated map and help your team get to where they needed to go. Sometimes this institutional knowledge paid off. Sometimes people got lost and learned the hard way. Like a physical roadmap, an IT roadmap shows you where your data flow in and out and all throughout your enterprise. Instead of roads, the lines on your map are major transactional systems, databases or warehouses, business intelligence platforms, or even cybersecurity platforms that help protect your company. Also, like a physical roadmap, these tend to become out of date. The way landscape changes in technology is significantly faster and more variable than the physical highways and byways we drive on with our vehicles. There are also additional things we need to consider, such as legislative activities which could prevent an existing technology investment from operating the same way it did last year. Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, GDPR, these are just some examples of recent legislation that made seemingly overnight changes in how your IT systems work for you. Great, so what isn't an IT roadmap?
An IT roadmap isn't something you can pull a Ronco
and you said it.
It isn't a static document, an inventory, or a simple two-dimensional plot of where things are at today. What I'm trying to say here is that you don't get to do just a one-time deliverable. This is an ongoing effort that will take constant engagement. If you're not up to that, stop the video now, because the rest simply isn't for you.
Great, so what goes into an actual roadmap, and where do we draw the line, so to speak, on what gets into the roadmap and what doesn't? This is where the typical consultant answer of, "It depends," comes in. Roadmaps can be as complicated and convoluted as you want to make them. However, when you're operating at the speed of business, you really don't have time to become an expert at reading IT roadmaps, and really, you only want to focus on the key performance indicators around each area. For starters, we need to take the concept for start and finish and do a paradigm shift into start and potential finish. We know for certain what our starting point is, and that's a fact. What we have is a good idea on where we'll be after a specified period of time. In other words, we're making an educated guess on what the future state of our environment will look like based on the type of investments we want to make in the technology, the type of changes the company is expecting to make that will impact each system on the roadmap, and any forecast of regulatory changes coming down the pike, which will impact the way we do business. If you've seen how hurricanes are tracked, you can get an idea of what a predicted path might look like for an IT assets roadmap. We also need to take the concept of roadmap and make the updates real time. We're used to using Apple Maps, Google Maps, or Waze to get us real-time traffic information with our car-based navigation systems. We need to consider taking this more frequent update approach to our IT roadmaps, so our technology doesn't get lost or left out of date, becoming a technical debt rather than an asset. That said, let's figure out what two major items we need to focus on are. First, what are your major systems and capabilities that you want to call out on this roadmap? And how can you represent them in an easy to digest manner? I'd recommend simplifying this by focusing on where most of your money is being spent and where you expect most of your money to come from. Expenses and revenues. Grab your highest value items in each of these areas and draw an imaginary line which, for your purposes, the juice isn't worth the squeeze from a management perspective. you'll quickly find out that you have 2, maybe 3 very large spends and a huge bucket of other. Take a pass and categorize the other bucket as best you can. Some quick wins are lumping core infrastructure into an investment bucket, like your routers, switches, internet access, cabling, and so on. Or lumping your back office IT services like backup and recovery, help desk, or project management into a bucket. The same concept applies on your revenue generation side. Any technologies that support the sales process, from e-commerce to sales commissions calculations or credit card processing systems, lump these into logical categories which make sense to you and your team, and figure out which top 3 or 4 make the most sense to tackle during this first pass. And if those remaining items are worth looking at, look to tackle them later. You'll notice I haven't specifically called out any actual technologies or software. Rather, I've specified capabilities. This is crucial in the world of IT road mapping, as we don't want to make the representation into the company that the only path forward on a particular solution is with a specific software, a specific vendor, or a specific technology. We want to ensure that we've baked in the mindset of flexibility up front, so when each item on our roadmap is reviewed, we don't get stuck in the mental trap of assuming what got us here will continue to get us there. This also helps us identify some critical data on-ramps and off-ramps for each of these roadmap items, so that they may be taken into consideration during the planning cycle. One final area you'll want to consider from a systems perspective is one of risk. While we're not going to talk about how to quantify and qualify risk for your processes, capabilities, or information technology in this video, let's assume you've got a decent handle on where your risk resides within your organization. Using the same imaginary line concept, draw a line through your risk ranked list, taking the top items you feel comfortable tackling during this pass. Hopefully you already have some of these items on your list from the previous exercise. Now that we've identified the list of systems we want to include on the roadmap, we'll have to identify the qualities we want to measure for each of these information systems. A real quick primer. What's an information system? How is it different from information technology? Follow the link here. Okay, what should we track? I think there are 4 major components a company needs to track at bare minimum: cost, support, risk, fit for use. Let's talk cost. At a minimum, this needs to capture the total annual cost of licenses and contracts associated with providing maintenance to the underlying asset. For example, if this were your ERP system, you would want to capture what your software licenses cost on an annualized basis. If you have support contracts with third-party vendors, they would be captured here as well. Additionally, any capital costs with ongoing projects would want to be captured underneath this bucket. Support. Identify how the software and technology support is being managed. Is this insourced, and if so, how deep is the bench supporting this? How well trained are these resources, and how well have they been performing since you've employed them? Capture all full and fractions of a headcount here. Risk. What happens if this information system goes away? What's the risk to business operations? What happens if your competition develops a solution that directly competes in this space? Will your technology become irrelevant and your customer switch to the alternative? Is this information system actively mitigating an ongoing threat or risk to your business, such as a regulatory or cybersecurity threat? Fit for use. How well does this system actually meet your needs? Are you using the system despite the fact that it isn't actually better than nothing? Are your staff satisfied with the system, or when the system name is said out loud, is it met with eye rolls? For each of these 4 areas, there are multiple different ways to qualify and quantify the measures. Your organization needs to choose the best measures and metrics which make the most sense for you to track and maintain.
Great. Now that you've evaluated your options in terms of which metrics and measures to gather, you need to determine what phase of a systems management life cycle you believe each system will be in over the course of time. First, let's explore the types of phases you can consider. Thinking of a farmer's field, the farmer has 4 basic options when it comes to growing crops. Plow the soil, sow the seeds, grow the crops, harvest the crops. This concept should be easy for us to understand, which is why I've stolen it from a colleague and used it here. Plow the soil. You need to start with a clean slate. This means you either have nothing planted in the soil today, or whatever you've planted is going to be scheduled for removal once the plows come along. In essence, you're getting ready for the proverbial out with the old, in with the new. The old, in our case, could be outdated ways of doing business or antiquated information systems which are no longer fit for purpose. Plowing the soil in our world is planning, requirements gathering, capital raising, and awareness generation within the organization. Sow the seeds. It's time to kick off a project. We're done with the planning, and we're ready to start picking up that capital and spending it. Our requirements and objectives are clear enough to begin development and delivery of a new information system which will begin to show value back into the company. Grow the crops. We have the initial seed planted, and the roots of the system have grown into place. We've finished our initial project or our minimal viable product, and we're ready to continue to invest in the information system and grow it further to enhance more capabilities within the enterprise. We're taking capital scale investments into our systems in order to expand and grow the presence of the IS. System changes or configuration tweaks won't really be rolled up into this category. Harvest the crops. It's time to reap the fruits of your labor. This is the part where the capital investment phases have largely wrapped up, and you've entered into the long-term cruise part of your journey. Your organization will continue to make minor updates to the information system, will continue to update technologies to the next minor revisions, but you will no longer be engaged in months or years-long projects to implement and deploy information systems and technology. Be careful though, because if you let your information systems languish too long in this phase, your investments into information systems assets will quickly devolve into technical debt, meaning it's going to cost your company more and more to replace the information system the longer and longer you defer major upgrades or revamps of your way of doing business. The analogy to crops might not be 100% aligned, as in our case with information systems, we can dip in and out of the grow phase from the harvest phase depending on how your business needs evolve, or how the capabilities of the underlying technology expand. This lack of alignment comes from my 0 years of experience as a farmer. Finally, as mentioned earlier, we have the dimension of time. Starting with today, drop in everything that exists as of the present. On a quarter-over-quarter projection, map out where each of these roadmap items is, starting with today's inventory of information systems and projects. Document the cost, support, risk, fit for use, and life cycle phase of each information system. Now that the current state has been documented, it's time to layer in the future state. This can be accomplished in one of 2 ways. First, you can project where and when you'll need to implement new business information systems based on weaknesses or lack of enablement from IT. These usually come from your business capability measures or will come from corporate, division, or department strategies. Begin layering in your plow items for where you think you need to start allocating resources to begin planning. If applicable, identify which information systems and technologies will need to be retired and link them to this roadmap item. The second way begins with the end of the first way. Identify your information systems which are long in the tooth or no longer adequately perform up to your value metrics. Selectively add in plow objectives to retire these older information systems with a transition to a new, more effective, efficient, and value-focused information system. If you've done this properly, you should have enough data to plot out your business information systems roadmap. How you visualize this information is completely dependent upon the type of decisions being made. However, many seem to prefer a Gantt-style chart with phases and cost overlays, or a financial project with cash flows for each period computed.
WCSSRG can help you identify those quick wins.